Welcome to day 134 of 66 and 26 as we begin week 20 of our journey to read through all 66 books of the Bible in 2026. We're back in the book of Exodus today, chapters 24 to 27. Remember where we are in the story. God has brought the people of Israel out of slavery in Egypt and now has brought them to the base of Mount Sinai to give them the Ten Commandments and other instructions in the covenant that he makes with Israel. And he's invited Moses to come up on the mountain. And one other remarkable thing happens here in Exodus chapter 24, and that is God allows the elders of Israel to come into his presence. Now, this should not be able to happen. God is holy and majestic, and sinful human beings do not mix well with a holy God. They should be utterly destroyed in his presence. And yet God invites them to come and to eat with him and see God. But notice that it only happens after they've been sprinkled with the blood of the sacrifice. They have to have their sin atoned for by a sacrifice. In this case, it's an animal that's sacrificed. But this also points us to the ultimate sacrifice that is in Jesus. We come into the presence of God and we're allowed to see God, and we will one day with our own eyes see God, and we're allowed to because of the sacrifice of his son, Jesus. As we get into Exodus chapters 25 to 27, we see the instructions God gives through Moses for the building of a tabernacle. Now, as we're reading these chapters, it might be a little bit overwhelming to see all the instructions and the materials and all that, but every one of the instructions here could preach its own sermon. As an example, you might notice as you read through that the closer you get to the actual Holy of Holies, the Holy of Holies is that place where God sits in a localized presence on earth in a most holy place, the Holy of Holies. And the closer you get to that Holy of Holies within the tabernacle, the more precious and expensive the materials. So out in the courtyard, the altar is bronze, the bases are bronze. As you get closer into the holy place, the bases are silver. As you get into the Holy of Holies itself, then everything is gold, and even the cover of the Ark of the Covenant, which is God's seat, his mercy seat, is of pure gold. And it's to say that God is beyond compare, and everything as you get closer and closer to the Lord, the more precious and more beyond compare. And the other thing is that the fact that God is even dwelling with his people is an act of mercy and grace. God desires to dwell with his people. Even though they are sinful, rebellious people, God has made this provision by which he can dwell among the people without destroying them in his holiness. And that is the tabernacle. And the tabernacle itself actually points us as Christians forward to the coming of Jesus. John, in his gospel, John 1:14 says, "The word became flesh and made his dwelling among us." But that word in the Greek for made his dwelling is literally the word tabernacle. So the word became flesh and tabernacled among us. And now not in a tent made by human hands, but in human flesh, God present with his people. And so all these chapters that we're reading today in Exodus actually are pointing us forward to our Savior Jesus, who came to live among us, because that is God's desire. Though we are sinful and rebellious, he wants to come and live among us and for us to be his special people.